Welcome to the Artist Work Ethic Podcast. I'm Mike Pelak. I'm a screenwriter and filmmaker who's always looking to maximize my time and potential as I work to break in. In this podcast, I talk to artists of all kinds who have seen success in their fields about their process, habits, and work ethic. Today on the show is Jon Pebsworth. Jon is the lead singer for the California-based ska punk band BuckONine. During the mid to late 1990s, they experienced mainstream success with the release of the album 28 Teeth and its most successful single, My Town, which received national radio airplay and was in rotation on MTV. BuckONine stopped touring full-time in 2000, but continues to perform regularly throughout California and much of the Southwestern U.S. All right, Jon, thanks for coming on with me today.
Yeah, man. Stoked to be here.
So when you guys were still playing locally in San Diego with BuckONine, what was your vision for taking the band to the next level at that point?
That's a good question. It was like at the time when I first joined BuckONine, we were just getting started as a local San Diego band. I grew up in Los Angeles, so, I had experience playing in bands and stuff up there for quite a bit through my high school years and everything like that. So I think once the BuckONine band started to do good here in San Diego, I kind of was like, told those guys, hey, listen, we should start to expand this local band thing and try and get up to LA. And, there's like Orange County, there's Riverside County and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we did. And so I was able to get us some shows in LA, through some old friends, because I moved down here, after high school for college. And that's where I met the BuckONine guys. That's kind of how it started, was well, let's not just be a local band in one town. Let's try to do the local band thing in several towns in and around Southern California. And then that expanded to Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And then, once those types of things started happening, then it was well, let's go to San Francisco, let's go to Santa Barbara, and let's go to San Jose and Oakland and Berkeley and Sacramento and shit like that, Las Vegas. That was kind of the vision, and it worked.
Then, you guys had a couple of pretty successful records. And as you were working towards those prior to the success of 28 Teeth, what kind of habits and work ethic did you personally and the band as a whole utilize to make sure you were always driving forward?
I think that it just became almost obsessive, really, in those days when it first started to click, locally here in San Diego. I just couldn't turn my brain off. It was just like an instinct almost. It was so the habits they came pretty natural as far as just getting on that phone, because there was no email back then. There was no texting or hitting people up on social media and stuff. So it was just it was phone calls. So it was always hunting down phone numbers for people that were booking shows in different parts of the state or the state next door or whatever. And then also trying to hook up with other bands. And so I think one thing that we tapped into and we learned from Skank and Pickle from the Bay Area was they had this thing where they would, say they're from the Bay Area, and they would say, hey, your band is from San Diego. Why don't we swap shows? You guys come up here and open for us. We'll go down there and we'll open for you. Even though we were opening for them when they, because they had already figured that out. But that's what we learned. And then through time, we realized, oh, wow, there's some cool bands in Phoenix, Arizona. Let's swap shows with them. Let's swap shows with bands from Orange County. Then we started expanding that, and it was we found bands like MU330 in St. Louis, and then the Blue Meanies in Chicago, and the Suicide Machines in Detroit. And so then it just kind of became this network of, kind of ska punk bands. And we would all, Link 80 was in San Francisco or Oakland, whatever area, the Bay Area. And so we would do that very thing. and just swap shows. And eventually, it just, those types of things turned into like tours, like real leave your house, leave your city for a month kind of shit, and go all over the place, Texas and through the South and Florida and all the way up the East Coast. And then we would just meet bands all along the way and just keep doing the same thing.
So you kind of answered my next question, which was, once you did break through and you were touring full time, and maybe things got a little more comfortable at that point, where maybe you're not sleeping on as many floors and maybe getting a hotel here and there. How did you keep the drive to keep pushing forward and maintaining all those habits?
The kind of like the stoke element that you would get from these shows would fuel that fire to keep it going. I remember thinking like, man, we're in Chicago right now, and we just had this like kind of pretty epic show. That was fucking awesome. And we're like fucking, I don't know, 2,500 miles away from home or something, or whatever it was, and thinking, that's crazy. We're not a local band anymore, or just a local band. And so I think that kind of stuff just fuels it to want to, it's kind of like, I guess, what, like a person that loves money, they figured out how to make a bunch of money, and then they're like, ooh, that was great, I just made a bunch of money, I want to keep doing that. It's like, for us, it was like, wow, we just like had a bunch of kids singing songs that we wrote, and we're in fucking Kansas City right now. And so like, I think that inspiration and that kind of feeling just, compels you to want to, it's like a drug, you just kind of want more and more and more. And so that's what keeps you going.
So fast forward a couple of years to today, you're still putting out records. I mean, I guess I feel like you just put out your last record, but I think that was 2019 at this point. You sort of re-released your solo record. You're still playing shows. What's your process today to ensure that you're getting things done for the band, even with your other commitments outside of music?
I mean, I think I'm still operating on that same like flex capacitor, if you will, kind of idea of just like throwing beer cans and banana peels in it, and like anything that I do musically tends to always just fuel that same flex capacitor, that's always been there. I'm in search of the, writing great songs. Like that's really what I want in my life. And that's what I feel is like, without the risk of sounding cheesy, but like, that's kind of what I feel like I'm here to do. It's the moments like I have had where people come up to me either before a show or after a show and say, hey man, this one song that you wrote really touched me and really affected my life in a positive way. And it helped me get through a really hard time. And I've had so many really interesting stories like that have been told to me, just like standing next to the bathroom or standing on the side of the stage waiting to go play, or at the bar after the show or whatever. And I'm telling you, man, those stories just are, it's like like someone handed me $1 million. If I was a person that loved money, that would be like a huge success, Yeah. And so since I take my inspiration, and I've touched somebody, to me, that's more important than some monetary advance. So I take high stock in that. And so when those types of things happen, it just makes me more confident and want to continue to do it, even though I'm going to do it no matter what, because it's just, I have to, it's like part of me, and it always has been since I was like 14, to just want to write songs and make music, play music with my friends and all that stuff. But I really want to still to this day craft songs that I feel are real and the best that I can be.
So how important would you say persistence and perseverance were to you and the band, and just creativity and arts in general?
I think it's highly important, like having that motivation and to be persistent. Back to what I was talking about, like, on those phone calls in those early days, I was probably fucking driving some people crazy, just calling them all the time, because I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I think I'm going to call that dude again. Sometimes people would be like, dude, I'll tell you what, you guys can play for fucking 30 minutes at 6:30 on this show, no more. And I'll give you $40 if you please just stop calling me. I'm like, done. So yes, I think persistence is like super important. And to know, when you're kind of going too far, and then maybe just go a little bit into the too far, but not too far into too far. It's hard because I also, tend to kind of get bummed out and get depressed. So being motivated sometimes when I'm in that kind of mode is very difficult. So it takes something that pops up, or someone that'll call me or call the band and say, hey, you guys want to do this, or play this show.
Well, it goes back to that inspiration that you talked about. That was the seed in the very beginning.
Yeah. It truly is. It's still there, and that's what makes it fun too, and then when you talk to your buddies in the band, and maybe one of them has like a new idea for a new song or something like that gets you excited. So it's kind of like, oh, cool, yeah, that sounds rad. Let's work on that.
Awesome. Well, anything that you want to plug or talk about before we go?
Like you mentioned before, I re-released that solo record that I did a while back, and so that's out there now, like just on the digital formats and stuff. And then BuckONine, we just finished recording like a live album a little while back, and it's like, I think we did like 14 songs live in the studio kind of thing, so there's like no click track, no overdubs, none of that shit. We're just like 1, 2, 3, go. And during the pandemic, we couldn't play live. So we wanted to do this. We've been wanting to do this live record forever. So we finally managed to do that. But also during the pandemic, we wrote like on upwards of 20, 25 songs, like new songs that are pretty well realized, already done and ready to go. We just have to now kind of like get together and actually go into the studio and record those and stuff. So that's kind of like what's next. And then we're going on tour in January for 2 weeks with Mustard Plug.
Oh, nice.
And we're kind of doing the same markets that I spoke about earlier that we, way back when tried to develop, and which we're still working those markets. So it'll be like Phoenix, Vegas, San Francisco, LA, on up to like Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and that kind of thing. And then back down the West Coast with Mustard Plug. So that's something to look forward to that we're doing. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Jon, thank you so much for coming on with me.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for listening today. Please subscribe to the Artist Work Ethic podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, and please rate and review the show. Follow us on Instagram at The Artist's Work Ethic, and check out theartistsworkethic.com.